I woke up in a stranger's body, with horns pricking through my hairline, and my ex's name burning on a contract I never signed. For a few dizzy seconds, I thought this was a really vivid dream. The floor under me was black marble veined with silver. Lightning flickered outside the massive glass wall, making the whole room stutter between shadows and glare. And my reflection. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black with faintly glowing tattoos crawling up my forearms like liquid metal. My hair, longer, darker, and much better styled than mine had ever been, brushed against my shoulders. And right above my temples, curling toward the ceiling, were two perfectly symmetrical horns. I jerked backward. The horns jerked with me. "Okay," I said out loud, voice deeper than I expected. "That's new for you," someone drawled behind me. "Tuesday for me." I spun around so fast my unfamiliar balance nearly threw me over. The man leaning against the piano looked irritatingly calm for someone wearing my body. My real body. Same short dark hair, same paint-splattered sneakers, same tiny scar near my eyebrow from when I was 8 and ran into a fence. He had his arms folded, and my face arranged into a look I could only describe as bored aristocrat. "Give that back," I snapped. He arched one of my eyebrows. "I would. Truly. But you seem to have taken something of mine first." My heartbeat, or whatever was thudding in this demon-sized chest, picked up speed. "Who the hell are you?" "Roen," he said simply. "Demon. Contract holder. Victim of one extremely inconvenient magical malfunction." He gestured toward me. "You, apparently." Lightning threw my features into sharp relief, and I hated how good he looked as me. "Unfair. Swap us back," I demanded. Roen, wearing me like a designer coat, shook his head. "Not that simple. The artifact that did this works on triggers, strong emotion, betrayal, love, sacrifice. Yours got tangled with mine." I blinked. Because, he said flatly, "your ex-fiancé signed a contract with me last month." Name Eric ring any bells? Oh, it rang. It rang like a cathedral full of wedding bells and red flags. I pressed my unfamiliar hands over my unfamiliar face. The claws, actual claws, clicked against my cheekbones. Unbelievable. I knew he was selfish, but selling his soul for career advancement? That's tacky even for him. Roen tilted my head, studying me with my own brown eyes. "You fainted when the magic hit." Heart stopped for 40 seconds. The artifact panicked, swapped us. Artifacts panic? This one does. A low hum prickled against my skin like static. My emotions, anger, confusion, leftover heartbreak, were making the air shimmer faintly around me. Roen noticed. "Careful," he said. "My magic answers feelings. Yell too loud, you might accidentally summon hellfire." "Good to know," I muttered, trying to breathe evenly. My lungs felt too big. My pulse slammed through veins not mine. Every movement carried strange weight, like the body remembered battles I'd never fought. Roen straightened from the piano. My slouchy hoodie, on him, looked like an intentional fashion choice. "Listen carefully. When the sun rises, this swap becomes permanent." I froze. "Permanent? As in, forever permanent?" He nodded once. "Absolutely not," I said. "I have rent, plants, a dental appointment next Thursday." Rowan's expression didn't change. "Then we find the artifact before dawn. Or rather, you find it. It responds to emotional owners. Right now, that's you. Perfect." My worst breakup was now a magical scavenger hunt with hell's most condescending middle manager. Lightning cracked outside again. Rain slid down the glass wall behind him, neon signs from the city below bleeding across the floor like liquid fire. "Fine," I said. "But stop moving my face like that. You're making me look smug." "Your face does smug very well," Roen said dryly. Then he studied my awkward stance, the two long arms, the accidental twitch of claws, and smirked. "You walk like a collapsing marionette." I glared. "I have horns throwing off my center of gravity." "Excuses." He brushed my bangs out of my eyes with my hand. "Come on, marionette. We've got work to do." Before I could answer, his phone buzzed on the counter. Roen crossed the room in 2 strides, checked the screen, and his smirk vanished. He turned the phone toward me. A name glowed there. Eric. Message, we need to talk. Tonight. The rain outside thundered harder. Rowan's eyes, my eyes for now, lifted to mine, sharp as shattered glass. He's not calling you, Rowan said quietly. He's calling my contract. Rain turned the city into a smear of neon and glass, the kind that makes everything feel cinematic and terrible at the same time. I kept my head down beneath a dark hood, trying to hide the horns that insisted on nudging the fabric like disobedient seedlings. Rowan, wearing my body like he'd been born to slouch in hoodies, walked beside me with unhurried, infuriating calm. He thinks he's meeting you, I said, meaning me and my body. You do the talking. I'll keep the magic from panic breathing. Do not speak to the artifact like a houseplant, Rowan murmured. And keep your emotions steady. Mine reacts when you spike. Right, I said. So no thinking about betrayal, or love, or sacrifice, he finished, almost gently. Yes. The restaurant's awning glowed a quiet gold above the door. Inside, everything was the color of expensive hush, velvet, low lights, forks that could slice legal fees. The hostess's gaze hopped from my height to Rowan's my face, and settled there with faint recognition. Reservation under Eric Hart, Rowan said smoothly in my voice. Of course he'd reserved something gilded. Of course the name sounded good at this table. We glided after the hostess. I tried to glide. My new center of gravity had other ideas. The floor tried to negotiate with my feet. A waiter appeared with water, and the kind of posture that says you are being judged by your napkin fold. Rowan glanced up at him with my eyes, and for a split second, the demon inside the human frame fogged the air, predatory, precise, clinical. The poor waiter froze. Hey, I muttered, kicking Rowan lightly under the table. Don't demon stare the help. His lashes fluttered once. The pressure vanished. He pasted on a smile that looked almost normal. Sparkling, please, he said. Still, I added, because I panic order when I'm policing supernatural microaggressions. Eric arrived late in a coat that pretended he'd run here in the rain. He hadn't. He'd parked across the street, and waited for the timing to feel dramatic. I could tell by the way he scanned the room for mirrors and sympathetic witnesses before letting emotion onto his face. Lian, he breathed, settling into the chair opposite Rowan. God, you look. He stopped, recalibrated to something softer. You look tired. Big day, Rowan said. My voice wore a layer of winter, cool even, not quite warm enough to snow. Eric reached across the table. The gesture was practiced, the ring finger bare, the tan line a quiet ghost. Listen. I didn't want to text, but I couldn't leave things the way we did. A heartbeat, he chose his words. I made a deal to secure our future, for us, for you. I watched his mouth form us, and felt my ribs tighten like a zipper snagging skin. For me, Rowan corrected, pleasant as poison. You made a deal for your future. Eric's smile thinned. You always think the worst of me. I always think the true of you, Rowan said. And if I hadn't been busy keeping my magic from fogging the chandeliers, I might have applauded. The waiter returned with water. Rowan's gaze flicked up, soft, I mouthed, and he gentled it, even added a thank you that sounded almost human. The waiter breathed again and lived to refill another glass. Look, Eric tried again, leaning forward. The contract is leverage, not a death sentence. It gets me what I deserve faster. Then we can pretend the stairwell you took is the same as climbing, I said, unable to swallow it. Both men looked at me. What? I added. I'm the security detail. I'm allowed opinions. Eric blinked, then dismissed me with the politeness you keep for people who park your car. He turned back to Rowan. You know I'm right. I did it for us. You did it for the version of me that never asks you to be less, Rowan said softly. Which is not me. Eric flinched, but only because it worked for him to look wounded. He was beautiful at self-injury, no blood, all theater. Excuse me, a voice said at our elbows, smooth as a violin string. Is this seat taken? I looked up into a face that made chandeliers pay attention. The woman had the kind of beauty that made you agree to anything, and the posture of someone who could run a country in flats. Her dress was a pale gray that turned the word understated into a threat. Seraya. Eric exhaled, relief and calculation braided together. I didn't know you were in the neighborhood? Her smile stayed on her mouth, her eyes moved elsewhere, over me, then through me, like I was glass holding a storm. It wasn't a human scan. It tickled. It knew. I was nearby. Seraya, Roen said, as if testing the taste of it. He didn't offer a hand. She didn't seem like the handshaking type. She sat. The waiter reappeared with a napkin, like a magician's dove. Seraya thanked him in a tone that made the entire staff stand taller. Lian, she said, turning to Roen as me with a warmth that never reached her pupils. I've heard so much. Likewise, Roen returned, a pleasant blank. And you, she added, looking straight at me. Her gaze slipped past the hood, past the rain on my sleeves, past the human disguise. For a moment, the air tightened between us, a clear string you could pluck. You look different. The artifact inside my borrowed bones answered her attention with a low, defensive hum. I forced it quiet. The way you hush a dog that's sure the mailman is a demon. Unfortunately, in this case, it might have been right. Short scenes came and went, quick cuts edited for pain, Eric laying out his excuses like amuse-bouches, bite-sized, pretty, nutritionally empty. Seraya sliding in remarks that felt like compliments until the aftertaste. Roen wearing my face like a calm lake with knives at the bottom. You were never patient, Lian, Eric said kindly. You hated waiting. I made waiting obsolete. I hated watching you cut lines, I said. Ambition requires angles. Integrity requires spines, Roen murmured. Eric's jaw tensed. Seraya's chin tipped. The room hummed with money. When the plates arrived, Seraya excused herself with a smile at me that said, follow or regret it. I did. The restroom was the kind where even the soap looked expensive, and the mirrors wanted to be worshipped. Seraya stood before a panel that reflected her into infinity. Our eyes met in the glass, the demon I was temporarily wearing, and the woman who looked like a cathedral found a way to walk. You're not him, she said softly. Not for lack of trying, I said. Walking in this body is like borrowing a race car with an opinion. Her laugh was a bell, it didn't warm her. I'm Seraya, guardian of an artifact you've recently mishandled, fiancé to your ex for now, and someone who prefers honesty even when it hurts. And I'm Lian, I said. Borrowed demon. Owner of several terrible life choices. She tilted her head, eyes sharpening. The artifact, Nabath of Hearts, calibrates to authentic impulses. It doesn't bend to performance. Betrayal, love, sacrifice. It drinks what is real, and it starves on lies. I looked at our reflections. The horns peeked through the fall of my hood like punctuation marks arguing with grammar. So that's why it yanks on my feelings like they're strings. Yes. You and Roen tripped each other's wires. She stepped closer, the mirror rippled, faint as breath on glass. You will not reach dawn without help. You don't know its thresholds. He won't tell you his. He told me about the dawn rule. He didn't tell you the artifact requires a sequence, she said. 3 doors, betrayal, love, sacrifice in that order. Get the order wrong, and it decides your play acting. It punishes theater. Good news, I said. My life is mostly improv. Seraya's mouth curved. Then improvise truth. Why tell me? I asked. Why not let us fail and keep your fiancé and his contract all to yourself? The mirror caught the smallest tightening around her eyes. Because this thing has owned my family longer than your ex has owned a mirror. I will not let it devour another generation. Her hand, cool, steady, hovered close to my sleeve without touching. The air between us prickled. Here's my offer, she said. I help you finish the sequence before dawn. In return, you both promise not to destroy the artifact at sunrise. Not destroy it? I repeated. The world's most manipulative mood ring? Why? Because I need it intact until I say otherwise, she answered, voice turning from bell to blade. There are people bound to it by oaths that unravel slowly. If you break it wrong, they break too. I thought of the way Roen had said permanent, and how my bones had believed him. I thought of Eric's hunger and the soft cruelty of his future. I thought of all the doors that might slam if we chose the wrong one first. Seraya watched me do the math. Well? She asked. I exhaled. The mirror shivered, tasting the truth of my fear. We'll need a map. You'll get a compass, she said. The map you make yourself. And the price? Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Simple. You don't destroy it. Until I say, the lights flickered. Just rain, just nerves, just the artifact pressing its ear to our promises. Deal? Seraya asked, and the word felt like flint waiting for a spark. The library Seraya led us into didn't belong to the same world as the gold-drenched restaurant or the rain-slick city outside. It was older, stranger, half catacomb, half cathedral. Lamps burned with blue fire along the walls, throwing cold light across shelves that seemed to lean away from our touch. The air smelled of dust, ink, and something metallic underneath, like the breath of a clock that had been running too long. She locked the door behind us. Not with a key. This lock recognized her pulse. The Nabath of Hearts, she said, her voice low, echoing under the ribs of the room, is older than my family. Older than this city. Maybe older than demons themselves. It amplifies emotions, binds them, rewrites their owners if it has time to drink deep enough. I ran my fingers along a shelf. The wood was warm, like skin. Rewrites, I repeated. As in, edits feelings? Seraya looked at me, the reflection of her eyes caught in the nearest mirror tile on the floor. No. Edits people. Emotions first. Then the rest follows. Roen leaned against the edge of a table, arms crossed, my face still arranged in calm disinterest. He hadn't let go of it since dinner, even when Eric's excuses piled like cheap wine glasses. Seraya turned to him, then back to me. 3 thresholds before dawn, she said. Betrayal, love, sacrifice. Each one demands something real, pretend, and it will close forever. Sounds fun, I muttered. Sounds like work. Roen corrected dryly. Seraya ignored us both. If you reach the center, the swap will reverse. If you fail, permanent, I finished, feeling the echo of that word scrape down my borrowed spine. She nodded. Exactly. Rowan's eyes shifted toward me. We'll need rules. I guard. You spark. Spark? You trigger it. The artifact feeds on emotion, yours, not mine. I let out a breath. So, I'm the battery, and you're the… What, the lightning rod? Shield, he said. Rod if necessary. The absurdity punched a laugh out of me. Great. One night, one pact. Then I get my life back. Rowan's smile didn't touch his eyes. If we survive the night. Before I could answer, the lock behind us clicked open without Seraya touching it. Another man stepped inside, wiping rain from his gloves with slow precision. His suit was dark, shoes darker, smile pleasant in the way knives sometimes glint before they cut. Nael, Roen said flatly. The newcomer's gaze slid over me, polite as tea service. So it's true, he murmured. Roen loses his body and still keeps the prettiest company in town. Life's rarely fair. Who invited you? Seraya asked. Consider me the courtesy call, Nael said, strolling between shelves like a man inspecting wine. Word is Eric Hart plans to transfer his contract. To me, I froze. Transfer? Like switching banks? Nael smiled at me, all sympathy and daggers. Something like that. Why settle for a tired old demon when you can have a stronger one? Roen didn't move. He won't survive the switch. Not my problem, Nael said pleasantly. I hear ambition tastes better when it's still bleeding. The air between the two demons tightened, invisible wires pulling the oxygen thin. The blue flames in the lamps leaned inward, as if gossiping. I raised a hand. Question. If I lose control and say, bite his ear off, that counts as barbarism, Roen said without looking at me. Not sacrifice? Sacrifice involves choice, he said. Not impulse. Noted. Seraya stepped between them like a queen separating bored princes. "You've delivered your message," she told Nael. "Leave." "Of course," Nael said, polite as silk. But his eyes slid back to me before he left, the way you glance at locked doors you plan to open later. When the door shut again, I exhaled. My fingers tingled, not pins and needles tingling, more like electricity searching for somewhere to live. Roen noticed. "You feel it now," he said quietly. "Like someone wired my nerves wrong," I admitted. "That's the mask," he said. "The first layer of demon power. It will answer you when your emotions spike." I stared at my hands. They didn't look different, but underneath the skin, something curled like smoke ready to ignite. "Try it," Roen said. "Here." Seraya raised an eyebrow. "This room holds worse secrets than yours. Do it." I closed my eyes, thought about Eric's voice saying I did it for us, and felt the temperature around my ribs drop. Cold spread outward, down my arms, into my fingertips, until the air hummed faintly between them. A book on the nearest shelf shivered, lifting half an inch before slamming back down. I yelped. "Okay. That wasn't me. That was you," Roen said. "Congratulations. You can rattle paper." Terrifying. I glared at him. "Next time I'm aiming for your smug face." "Please do," he said. "Might improve it." Seraya looked toward the far wall. "Enough. The artifact waits." At first, I didn't see it. Just a stretch of stone, lined with books. Then the sigils along the floor lit up, threads of red crawling outward like veins waking in a corpse. The shelves shuddered. Dust fell in soft sighs. The wall split, not cracked, folded, like paper peeling itself open. Behind it, a corridor waited, lined with mirrors that breathed faint fog onto the air. My pulse tripped. Each mirror caught pieces of my reflection, but not the body I wore now. My own face stared back, 100 Lians with eyes too wide. "The first door," Seraya said softly. "Betrayal." The air smelled of rain and metal and something older, the kind of scent memories carry before they hurt. Roen stepped forward first, my face calm as winter. Then he looked back at me, the faintest curl of something almost like sympathy behind my own borrowed eyes. "Stay close, Spark," he said. "It feeds on fear first." The shelves groaned wider. The corridor yawned open, mirrors breathed deeper, and I followed him in. The corridor swallowed us and breathed us out into my old office, except cleaner than it ever was and sharper around the edges, like a memory wearing high heels. Fluorescence buzzed. Whiteboards gleamed with markers in anxious colors, scarlet deadlines, cobalt arrows, a green that insisted it meant growth. The ping-pong table had become a drink station because someone read an article about culture. Paper name tags curled on a tray beside cups of warm kombucha. The projector screen at the far end blinked awake. I knew this night. I knew it in my bones, and in the way my stomach tightened as if bracing for a punch. "The presentation, careful," Roen said, quiet at my shoulder. He wore my body like a tailored suit nobody else could afford. "It will feel real everywhere except the part where you can win by pretending." "Thanks," I said. That's exactly how it felt the first time. People flowed in. Colleagues with the distracted faces of folks who sleep with their laptops. The CTO, arms folded. The CEO, smile glued on, eyes calculating. And Eric, younger by months and somehow lighter, like he hadn't learned yet how heavy he could be. He took the clicker. My hands, the demon's hands, curled. Claws bit my palms. That felt honest. "Play it your way, and the room won't change," Roen murmured. "The Nabath eats lies. It starves on theater." Across the ceiling, something thin uncoiled. A shadow that wasn't a shadow, more like a long ink-black eyelid opening to reveal the suggestion of a pupil. I felt it look at me. The observer. The artifact's attention had the weight of a coin on the tongue. Eric started talking. "Tonight I want to show you a prototype that reframes onboarding into an experience." My voice, from before, echoed in my head. Lines I'd rehearsed for weeks and never got to say. The deck on the screen, my deck, my visuals, my stupid little motion, sprites that made the room laugh in the exact places I'd planned for. My heart did the thing it did back then, sped up, overclocked, then lagged like a browser drowning in tabs. My heart, I muttered, is an old laptop. It heats up and freezes at the same time. Then we'll replace the battery, Roen said, not looking away from the screen. And the owner? A humor hiccup escaped me. I was grateful for its stupid timing. The room clapped at a joke I wrote. Eric smiled as if he owned humor. He didn't look at me in the front row. He looked over me, through me, toward the people who could promote him. The cold behind my sternum thickened. Power gathered like a storm that wanted a map. A curl of air stirred near my fingertips. The projector's light stuttered. I imagined a line of fire running from me to the screen, eating pixels. No, Roen said, a hand closing around my wrist. Not hard. Final. If you break the stage, the loop becomes a cage. I dragged in a breath, and the air smelled like dry erase cleaner and stale pastries in the oils of 100 anxious hands. I could end this in 10 seconds. You could trap yourself here forever in one, he said. Eric walked them through his research. He tripped over a term, recovered smoothly because charisma is Teflon. The CTO nodded at a slide I'd lost sleep over. My throat burned. I stood. The people in the back row didn't look. The ones near the front flicked their eyes toward me, then back to the screen. Story beats continued without me. This was not my stage. Not anymore. Don't perform for them, Roen said. Tell it to the thing that's watching. The ink lid widened. The ceiling seemed lower, as if the room wanted to hear me without the humans getting in the way. I looked at Eric's profile, that perfect angle I'd once sketched on a napkin. I hate this, I said aloud. I hate that you did it. But I hate more that I let you. The words felt like pulling a splinter the size of a city out of my tongue. The room flickered. The kombucha soured in an instant. I smelled it. A section of the slide went gray, as if an image license expired. I took another step toward the projector, toward the bright rectangle where my work pretended to belong to someone else. I was afraid of being the difficult one, I said, voice shaking. Afraid of being the woman who makes meetings awkward. Afraid of confirming the worst story people already tell about women who raise their hands. A laugh in the back row. Someone remembering a Slack thread. The artifact's attention pressed down, a weight and a warmth. And if I'm honest, I said, softer, I was afraid to find out that I was good enough to fight for, because what if I wasn't? What if the answer was no, and then I had nothing and no one, and no story about someday? Some of the fluorescence went out, as if the lie they'd been feeding on had been unplugged. The whiteboard markers bled. The ping-pong table shed its red solo cups like it was molting. On the screen, Eric's mouth moved, but no sound came out. The image froze on one of my slides, a tiny animation of a paper airplane looping toward a landing. It paused, waiting. The observer shadow dipped lower, almost brushing my hair. What do you want? Roen asked, voice level but not unkind. I want my name where it belongs, I said, and my voice cracked. And I want the part of me that went quiet to stop thinking quiet is safety. The projector blinked, once, twice, and the slide rewrote itself, not the whole deck. Just one sliver of it, a credit line at the bottom, prototype in UX, Lian and Roen. The font looked like mine, messy and precise. The room took a breath it didn't know it held. The kombucha righted itself, the smell of vinegar faded. A warmth moved through the carpet, up my legs, into my lungs. Truth fed it. I could feel that as clearly as heat. Eric turned in slow motion, like a dream trying to catch up with the waking. Our eyes met. He looked hurt, the way actors look hurt on purpose. I'm not yelling, I told him. Or the shape that wore him here. I'm not hating you is not the same as forgiving you. I'm just choosing me, even if I'm late to the choice. The observer touched the projector with a lash of shadow. The screen folded in on itself like paper. The room exhaled the people. Chairs vanished. Only the stage remained, an island of light in a sea of dark carpet. Door, Roen said, nodding at the back wall. It was there, a seam where drywall met nothing, a line you only saw, if you squinted with the part of your heart that never got promoted. As I walked toward it, the air cooled, the artifact's way of humming approval. Was that enough? I asked. For this door, Roen said. Truth is an appetite, not a rulebook. I hate that. I know. We reached the seam. I lifted my hand. The wall breathed and peeled back like the first page of a book. Behind it wasn't more office. It wasn't even my life. It was a street under a moon I didn't recognize. Rain making halos and puddles. A lamplight that carried a century in its glow. The air smelled like wet earth and old metal. Somewhere, a gate creaked. And there, small as a heartbeat, bright as a wound, was a figure I didn't know, and Roen knew too well. He went still. Not the practiced stillness he used for power. The other kind, like a violin string pulled so tight a breath could snap it. No, he said, very quietly. The doorway widened. The light deepened to something almost blue. The observer's shadow thinned along the threshold, eager. I looked at him. Your turn? His jaw clenched. We passed betrayal. It shouldn't. Show us love next, I finished. Sequence, remember? Maybe it thinks this is part of mine. The figure in the rain turned her face toward us, and the look that crossed Roen's borrowed features was not winter. It was something summer once promised and couldn't keep. The floor hummed under my feet like a warning or a welcome. Ready? I asked, though he clearly wasn't. He swallowed. No. The corridor opened wider anyway, and the rain reached for us with a soft, insistent hand. The doorway breathed us into rain. Not the city's chemical rain, but something older, clean and metallic, like water poured from a bell. Lanterns hung along a stone path. Their paper skins glowed the soft color of apricots. Beyond them, a garden rose and fell in terraces, wet cedar, black pebbles. Stands of bamboo that spoke in quiet clicks when the wind grazed them. The sky above had no stars, only a bruised blue light that made distance look like memory. My demon lungs pulled in the scent of wet earth, and the Nabath's attention settled over us like a transparent veil. If betrayal had tasted like vinegar, love was iron and warmth and a little honey left too long in sunlight. Roen, still wearing my human body, stopped at the first lantern. His hand hovered near it, not touching. The flame leaned toward his palm, curious. Where are we? I asked. He swallowed. Between what? Regret and weather, he said, and I would have laughed if his voice hadn't been so thin. We followed the path. Rain ran along the edges of the stones in patient rivers. In the near distance, a gate creaked and unlatched itself. The garden shifted to make room for someone else's footsteps. She came from the far side of the bamboo, a mortal woman in a plain dress and a coat too light for the rain, the kind of face that doesn't stop rooms but breaks them quietly after everyone leaves. Her hair was pinned like a promise. She carried a lantern by its wooden handle, and when she lifted it, the light caught a ring on her finger. Simple, soft-worn, honest. Roen stopped breathing. Is this? I started. He shook his head once, a denial aimed at the world. No. But the garden didn't hear him. Or heard and didn't care. She walked to a bench under a pine tree. Water tapped a rhythm along the needles above her. A rhythm my new body recognized as heartbeat. She sat, set the lantern by her knee, and looked at the path with the particular patience of someone who believes in arrivals. She waited for me, Roen said, barely sound. I was late. I didn't ask how late. The lantern's flame felt like a clock. The illusion changed its angle, as if the garden itself were a camera. A second figure appeared where the path bent. A man. Human, unremarkable, exhausted. The look of somebody trying not to be a coward and failing in increments. He carried a small wooden box against his chest and kept glancing behind him, hunted by nothing and everything. The woman stood. You're safe, she said. And when her voice touched the air, the rain softened around it. Not yet, the man panted. He's coming. Roen's hands fisted at his sides. I didn't mean to be late, he said. To no one the garden would answer. The man reached the bench, thrust the box at the woman, and then flinched. He looked past her, through the rain, toward us. Not seeing us. Seeing something else that wore the same shape I wore now. A demon stepped out of the bamboo. Him. or a version of him the Nabath had built from memory and consequence. Not Roen in my body, not me in his. The true posture, the true grace. The horns on that reflection's head made mine feel like training wheels. Contract, the reflection said, not cruel. Exact. The man shook. Please. She has nothing to do with this. The reflection looked at the woman the way storms look at orchards, not wanting to destroy, not willing to stop. Your debt is due, it said. The woman stepped between them. Take me then. Not how this works, the reflection said, colder. I felt Roen flinch against the edge of my perception. Not with fear but with a memory that had never cooled. A lantern sputtered, as if the air had lost interest in fire. You chose, he said to his own ghost, his voice breaking on a word I'd never heard him break. You chose the ledger. The reflection did not answer. It lifted a hand, and the box in the man's arm shook, the wood groaning like a small ship. Contracts are habitats, sometimes they sing. The lid peeled back like a tongue revealing the spell inside, and the garden pressed closer, eavesdropping on what couldn't be unsaid. Make it stop, I whispered. To Roen, to the watcher, to whatever part of this place listened to bargains. Make it different. It won't change, he said. Not with theater. The illusion, true to its nature, continued. The woman reached for the man's sleeve, whispered I couldn't hear, and then turned to the reflection with a small terrible smile. Then take me as witness, she said. If you must carve him out of himself, leave him a place to come back to. The reflection paused. For the length of a breath, for the length of a life. I don't know. And then cut the thread that tied the man to his future. He crumpled without blood. Some losses don't stain anything you can wash. The woman drew the breath meant for grief, and then a sound split the rain, a thin keen of iron. Something in the bamboo had been sharpened for exactly this scene. A wire sang. A bright line of danger snapped free at head height, and whipped the air toward Ron's reflection. He didn't see it. He never had. Move, I said. And the word wasn't a word anymore. It was a room with one door. The demon mask slid over me clean as a second skin. Cold bloomed at my sternum. The nice efficient kind of terror that tells your muscles what's worth moving for. I stepped, shoved, turned. One motion, a practiced choreography my body borrowed from some violence it had learned before I arrived. The wire kissed my forearm, not my actual flesh, Roen's. The sting was bright, unpleasant, absurdly ordinary. A thin line of blood beaded and ran, startling as a blush. The garden inhaled. The Nabath leaned down. Behind me, Roen grabbed my shoulders and dragged me back from the next arc of the wire like it wanted to write a sentence in my throat. The mask peeled away from my face with a little sound like silver tearing. What are you doing? He barked. His hands shook. Mine did too, for a different reason. Being your... The world swam, I blinked it still. Bodyguard. This is not... official, I said. Yet. But we have a free plan. It includes grumbling. Roen stared at the cut, at me. At the wire humming with old malice. You don't give fear to this thing, it keeps what it takes. I gave it mine, I said. Not yours. Lian, you told me the artifact eats lies and starves on theater, I said, breathless. Pity is theater. This wasn't pity. The wire stilled. The lanterns brightened. The woman in the rain looked at me, not at the demon I wore, not at the shadow of the demon who had failed her once, but at me. Her mouth softened, and for a moment, there was a warmth I didn't deserve, and maybe that was why it mattered. The Nabath touched the blood on my arm as delicately as if it were tasting tea. The pain didn't increase. It rearranged. Under my skin, something answered, my fear, my choice, threading itself down into the foundation of the garden, until the stones hummed with it. Love, Wade. Not the loud kind with fireworks or grandstanding. Not the sacrificial arches we build, so someone will take our picture under them. A small door held open in the rain. The reflection of Roen watched. The memory of him didn't change. This was not that kind of mercy. But the woman's lantern flared once, twice, and then the flame steadied, brighter than before. as if our tiny courage had given it a better supply of air. The gate that had unlatched at our arrival swung wider. The bamboo bowed low, as though apologizing to someone who deserved it long ago. "You passed," Roen said, voice low. "We passed," I corrected, because the cut was already knitting, and no scar deserved to be alone. He looked at my arm, at the fading line, and then at my face. His next breath scraped him raw. "Don't you dare do that again. First we get our bodies back," I said, meeting his eyes. "Then you can give me rules." Some expression crossed his features that wasn't winter this time. Not summer either. Maybe a late spring that knows about frost and still blooms anyway. He let go of my shoulders. We turned toward the open gate. The path beyond it shone like a promise someone had finally learned to make carefully. The lanterns swayed us forward. We didn't get 3 steps. Footfalls met the stone, crisp and cheerful, as if the owner of the feet had always been invited. Eric appeared from the curve of the path, coat dry despite the rain, hair arranged by a mirror that loved him. Beside him, Nael strolled as though he'd taken the scenic route through a gallery of other people's endings. He held something between 2 fingers, a shard of glass or crystal or ice that didn't melt in water. The garden dimmed in a way I felt in my teeth. "Hello, darlings," Nael said, pleasant as theft. "You look like you've been learning." "Some of us," Eric added, eyes on Roen and me, on me and Roen, on the cut that wasn't a cut anymore. "Look resilient." "What did you bring?" Roen asked, no question mark, only judgment. Nael lifted the shard. Inside it, a small light flickered, steady, frightened, stubborn. It felt familiar, like an oath that wasn't his, pressed into a shape it didn't consent to. "A key," Nael said. "Not mine." His smile sharpened. "Someone else's promise. Works wonders on stubborn doors." The Nabath hissed, not sound, pressure. The lanterns narrowed their flames. The wire in the bamboo shivered as if remembering a throat. "Final trial, then?" Eric said brightly, looking for his mark on the stage, hearing applause that hadn't happened yet. "Let's not keep destiny waiting." The gate beyond us opened farther, and for the first time since we'd entered the garden, the rain tasted wrong. Love weighed. Betrayal confessed. Sacrifice waited up ahead with a hunger that knew our names. The garden narrowed to a single gate, and beyond it the world fell away, into a hall that remembered the penthouse and decided to outdo it. Black glass rose in planes and ribs, catching the rainlight and folding it into knives. The ceiling arched like the inside of a bell. And the floor, if you could call it that, was water-laid razor flat, so still. It looked like polished obsidian, until a breath turned it into ripples. Every reflection in that dark mirror was too honest. My borrowed horns looked sharper. Roen, wearing my body, looked tired in a way winter understands. Seraya stepped in beside us, as though the hall had been waiting for her particular silhouette to complete the geometry. At the center, suspended above the water on nothing at all, pulsed the thing we'd been circling since dusk. The Nabath's heart, fist-sized and almost clear, a knot of glass and light braided with hair-thin shadows. Around it, high along the walls, moved the silhouettes of judges, tall, eyeless, jointed like folded paper, each turning with a papery rustle that wasn't sound so much as the idea of sound. Nael let the crystal shard in his hand catch the hall's glow. The light inside the shard stuttered, as if it didn't like being shown off. "Well," he said, cheerful as theft, "last door." "State your plan," Seraya said. It wasn't a request. Nael's smile warmed by 2 degrees. "Eric transfers his contract to me. Clean slate, no messy back interest. I snap the Nabath from its sulking orbit, and I keep Lian as an emotional catalyst. She's proven effective." Eric's gaze flicked to me, to Roen, back to the glimmering heart. "It's leverage," he said, as though explaining a spreadsheet. "The fastest route back to where we were. To where you were. Next to me." His voice gentled on the last 2 words, the way he used to fold napkins when he wanted me to be impressed. The floor mirrored his face without softening it. I felt the Nabath listen, the hall leaning toward truth the way plants lean toward light. He wasn't lying. He wanted me at his side, so he'd look the way he pictured himself looking. "I see you," I said, and the honesty tasted like metal. "But you don't see me. You see a Eric recoiled as if I'd tossed cold water. Nael didn't. The judges will require sequence, Nael said brightly, as if moderating a panel. We're at the last door, it still wants its rounds. Fortunately, I came prepared to speed them. The papery silhouettes along the walls turned their blank faces until the air felt crowded by attention. Sigils kindled beneath the water, concentric rings that made the floor look like a target. Saraya's voice slipped between us and the geometry like a blade sheathed in silk. Remember the order. The hall craves sincerity, not theater. Then let's feed it, Roen said, and stepped to the first ring. The water did not wet his shoes. It trembled under him as if taking his measure. A low thrum crawled up through the soles and into my teeth. Truth about self, a rustle breathed. I moved to the ring with him. My reflection looked back, him and me and him. Both wrong and somehow exactly right for the night the world had chosen. I swallowed. I was afraid to be loud, I said, and the admission flashed hot through my chest. Afraid to be needed, because being needed meant being seen, and being seen meant being hurt in a way that wasn't tidy. My laugh cracked. So I made myself useful and quiet. Easier to steal from. The water warmed under my feet, a pulse of heat like a hand, not forgiving exactly, witnessing. The judges' heads tilted. On the far wall, the faintest scrawl appeared. My name, in my own messy, precise hand, as if a ledger somewhere had finally been updated. Truth about him, sighed the hall. Roen stood taller, then let that posture go like a habit he'd outgrown. I'm exhausted by being a tool, he said, simply. The words left him like glass set down without a coaster. Clean, dangerous. By holding the weight of other people's choices and calling it duty. While I stand in the ruin afterward, pretending the ruin isn't mine, I want to choose who I am when I'm not holding a knife for someone else. The water, which had held a dozen of his reflections like a chorus of masks, went quiet until there was only one Roen there, no winter posture, just a man wearing my face and telling it the truth. The hall exhaled, a tone low enough to shiver the bones. Price, whispered the paper voices. Seraya did not look at us. She looked at the judges, and the judges looked back. You will not destroy the artifact at dawn, she said. There was no tremor in it, no plea. You will give me time to unbraid the oaths my family bound to it. Break it wrong, and people break with it. I won't allow that. Something like a scale hung above the heart, invisible, until the words pulled it out of abstraction. On one pan, the raw want to end this thing forever. On the other, faces we hadn't seen, and might never meet. The balance wavered. We agree, I said. I felt Roen's assent thread through mine, not words so much as a weight carried together. The scale steadied. The judges turned toward the heart. The rings of light underfoot tightened. And Nael moved. He didn't jump. He didn't lunge. He simply was at the center where before he had been elsewhere. One hand on the suspended heart. The shard in his other like a tuning fork striking a note the hall hated. The water, which had been warm and listening, went cold as a ledger on the day of reckoning. Transfer, Nael murmured, his voice the promise of an easy shortcut. Obligation zeroed, ownership reassigned. Catalyst retained. Eric stepped to the second ring, eyes fixed on the heart, throwing the weight of his wanting like a coin into a well he took for granted. I did it for us, he said, and meant it. As far as his definition of us could reach. The water hissed under him. His reflection flickered between versions of himself. Boyfriend, groom, brand, none of them looked at me. Move, Roen said, and we moved. I ran the way this body liked to run, hips low, momentum a friend, the demon, mask sliding down over my face with a cold that felt like clarity. The water woke beneath my feet in ripples that became ridges, then steps. Roen kept pace on the other side, my body carving a path without getting wet, our reflections running ahead of us like warnings. Nael's shard sang higher, an awful thin note that hooked the heart's light and began to reel. A black hairline cracked through the glass at the center of the heart, not breakage yet, but intention. No shortcuts, Seraya said, and her hands moved in a pattern that made the hall remember who kept its keys. Paper silhouettes dropped from the walls like jury members taking seats. Threads of ink, contract lines, whipped toward Nael and coiled around his wrist. He smiled like a man enjoying a good argument. Eric tried to reach past them both. "Lian," he said. And for once my name sounded like it belonged to me and not his script. "You don't get to say it like that," I told him, and hit the water so hard the impact boomed. The wave I'd built lifted, rolled, and struck the dais beneath the heart. The shard in Nael's hand flared, and the wave shattered around it, dropping at his feet like cut silk. "Administrative advantage," Nael said pleasantly, as if noting an accounting quirk. "Do keep up, Lian," Roen warned, and the warning was not about caution. It was about not spending myself on anger the hall could gorge on, without giving anything back. "Right," I said between breaths. "Tactics. Honest emotions only." We went to work, where Nael laid down clean, pretty lies, the kind that sell out of good lighting. We stepped forward with declarations that hurt a little to hold. Where Eric tried to weaponize nostalgia, I sliced it into compost. The hall liked us better that way. Its water would not bear a liar, but it bent into narrow bridges under our feet when we said things that tasted like truth. Still, the shard song climbed. The crack through the heart coral deepened. Judges leaned, the paper of their attention almost trembling. "New review pending," I panted, dodging a lash of contract thread that tried to ankle trip me. "If we survive, remind me to leave an angry rating for demons. Too much paperwork and blood." Roen, vaulting from ring to ring, snorted. "Without blood," he said, catching my wrist and slinging me across a gap that would have swallowed me. "Call it administrative overhead." We landed on the central ring together. I reached up, toward the heart, toward Nael's wrist, toward the shard, and the demon. Mask shivered, wanting to show me how to break a hand without breaking a promise. "Careful," Roen said. "I am careful," I said, and grabbed anyway. For a blinking heartbeat I touched the shard, cold humming with stolen oaths, and saw what sat inside it. Not a light, a held yes. Someone else's promise trapped and polished until it could pry other promises apart. The Nabath recoiled. The water leapt. Nael jerked back, and the shard's edge kissed my palm. Pain zipped through me. Not a deep hurt, a precise one, a bookkeeping cut. The hall smelled like rain on hot stone. Nael's eyes brightened. "There she bleeds," he said, delighted. Catalyst indeed. Roen hauled me behind him just as a net of ink. Threads snapped down where I'd been, sizzling on the water with a sound like frying arguments. Eric skated the perimeter, looking for the pose that would make his sacrifice look noble, without costing him anything essential. "Stop him!" Saraya's voice cracked like a whip, but the judges were occupied, weighing our bargains against our bones. The heart's crack creeled higher, one more hairline toward breaking. Roen breathed once, deeply, like a swimmer about to go under. Then he did something I'd never felt from him. He let go of a piece of himself. It looked like a sigil unhooking from his shadow. No, like a coin being pried off the axis of time. A small, bright constant, lifting from just above his heart and hovering, reluctant, in the air. My skin pebbled. The hall dropped a fraction of an inch, as if a pillar had been eased out of it. "What are you?" I started. "A mark of eternity," Seraya whispered, eyes going wide the way lamplight goes wide before the storm. "Don't." Rowan's face didn't know how to be anything but calm, so it kept trying and failing while he held that bright coin in front of him. "This anchors me across contracts," he said, mostly to me. "Across years. If I give it, I lose reach, range, part of what I am." "Then don't," I said. The word wasn't tactical. It was selfish and specific and said with a throat I was pretty sure was his, so it landed crooked in the air. "We'll find another way. There isn't time." He turned his palm and let the coin fall into the water. It didn't sink. It burned the surface, steady and aching, and the burn ran up through the rings, and into the heart the way a good truth does, unhurried and irresistible. The shard in Nael's hand screamed finally sound, finally pain, like a dentist's drill hitting something it shouldn't. The hairline crack in the heart sealed one filament at a time, like glass remembering how to be whole. Nael staggered as if someone had yanked a rug out from under his manners. The ink, Threads constricting Seraya snapped like spider's lines in a hard wind. The judge's blank faces turned toward Roen. Not approval, not mercy. Acknowledgement. And cost. He swayed. I caught him. My human body felt suddenly, shockingly fragile where his weight leaned into it. What did it take? I asked, throat raw. Distance, he said. And the word hurt him. Times I could have been. Places I could have reached, gone. The shard went dark. The held yes within it fluttered, then vanished. Released, or ruined. Nael stared at the dead tool, offense blooming on his perfect face. That, he said mildly, was rude. File a complaint, I said, teeth showing. Under administrative overhead. Eric, seeing the play fail, did what he always did when a ladder broke, looked for the nearest back door with a velvet rope. He lunged toward the heart bare-handed, which would have been brave if the hall hadn't already decided what his hands were for. The water under him rose up white and cold and simply put him back where he'd been. Not unkind. Utterly uninterested. Time, Seraya breathed. Hold it. She spoke to the hall as a steward speaks to a ship, and for once, it listened. The judges closed ranks around the heart, their papery limbs making a circle of negative space. The water settled. The ringing in my bones dulled. We stood in a quiet like the inside of a watch. Nael stepped back with a courtly nod, as if ending a waltz. Another night then, he said, fury hidden the way knives hide in bright kitchens. Another lifetime, I said. That too, he murmured, and with a soft severing of presence, he was gone. Eric, less graceful, backed away along the ring's edge, eyes bouncing between me and the thing he couldn't own. He didn't say my name again. He didn't have the right shape for it anymore. The hall reconfigured, walls unfolding, black glass relaxing its knives. The heart hovered steady. The scale above it had accepted our promise to Seraya, and, at least for now, found it balanced. I looked at Roen. How bad? I asked. He rolled one shoulder as if testing whether it still belonged to him. I'll be fine, he said, which was at least half a lie, and the water lapped at his boot like a cat that forgives selectively. I slipped an arm under his to steady him. The demon mask rose in me, concerned, then sank again when it discovered concern wasn't a performance. Review still stands, I said, trying to keep my voice light even as something in the hall's light shifted toward gray. 1 star. Would not recommend. Excessive paperwork, unacceptable blood policy, 0 blood, Roen managed, a thread of humor pulling his mouth into a curve that made my face look like it believed in afters. Call it administrative inconveniences. The judges climbed back into their niches. The water smoothed. The hall's temperature eased toward morning. Morning? I felt it then, a tug in my bones like a tide changing underneath a boat. My borrowed horns hummed. Somewhere not here, my own body shivered. Somewhere not here, Roen's body missed the weight of its mark and wanted him back anyway. The world had turned enough degrees that dawn had the right to ask for what belonged to it. Seraya felt it too. Go, she said. The rebinding will begin at first light, whether you're on your feet or your faces. What about? I gestured toward the heart. Stabilized, she said. For now. Keep your word. I'll keep mine. Eric lingered at the threshold, as men do when waiting is their last tactic. He didn't meet my eyes. Good. We were done being mirrors for him. The hall opened the way out in a seam of glass and water and deep breath. As we stepped toward it, the heart whispered against the inside of the world, a sound. Like glass put back on the shelf very gently. The kind of restraint that costs. The tug in my bones became a pull. Roen's fingers tightened on my sleeve without asking. I didn't shake him off. Home stretch, I said. Home, he echoed, and for the first time the word did not sound like a place he could only haunt. Dawn poured through the tall windows of the penthouse like someone had finally opened a vein in the sky. The black glass walls that had watched everything unfold now just reflected the pale gold of morning and the wreckage of chairs and sigils, and one very tired set of occupants. The Nabath's core floated low above the floor, light dimmed to the quiet glow of banked embers. It no longer pulsed with that too bright, too hungry attention. It was just waiting. And it was calling us home. The pull in my bones became a tug, then a demand. My body, my actual, human, stubborn body, felt close enough to touch and impossibly far at the same time. Roen swayed beside me in his own skin for the first time since the swap, the absence of his mark of eternity, making his outline look thinner somehow. Then the light from the core unfurled like a sheet being shaken out. It hit me first. Weightless one moment, wrong-sized the next. Then I crashed back into myself like falling into clothes left out in the rain. Too familiar. Too cold. Too mine. I gasped, chest heaving, as if lungs work differently when they belong to you again. Across the floor, Roen straightened inside his own body, with all the drama of a man adjusting a cufflink. Typical. I forgot how short you are, he said, voice dry as bone dust. I wobbled to my feet, brushing hair out of my eyes. If we ever swap again, I said, I'm leaving you my entire wardrobe. Consider it a threat. The corner of his mouth ticked up. Not a smile, heaven forbid, but close enough to count in low light. Seraya crossed the room, unhurried. Every step the kind of grace that makes furniture wish it could move out of the way faster. She didn't look at me or Roen. She looked at Eric, standing near the window like a man waiting for a last train that wasn't coming. It's over, he said before she could speak, his tone full of the resignation of someone hoping resignation might look like dignity. Seraya's gaze pinned him anyway. The engagement is finished, she said. I don't need your ambition, or your shortcuts. I need my family free. His jaw worked. You used me. I chose differently, she said simply. That's all. The sunlight caught her profile like it wanted to memorize her for later legends. Eric didn't look at me. He didn't look at anyone. When he finally left, it was without the defiance he'd worn like cologne for years. Just a man with empty hands and no idea what to do with them. The door closed behind him, quiet as a full stop. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. My body felt lighter than it had before the swap, as if being demon-adjacent for one night had shaken the dust off my bones. But some things hadn't gone back to factory settings. The echo mark thrummed faintly along my ribs, a silvery thread between me and Roen, no louder than a whisper through a wall. Not words. Just impressions. A flicker of calm from him when I found my balance. A spark of amusement when I threatened him with my wardrobe. If I concentrated, I could probably feel when he got irritated at paperwork 3 buildings away. Roen watched me watching him. We're alive, he said finally, like the phrase cost something to pronounce. That's already a luxury, I admitted. His eyes caught mine, and for once there wasn't winter in them. Just weather clearing. What you did, he said after a moment, voice even, giving the artifact your fear instead of mine. That was costly. So was throwing away your immortal frequent flyer miles, I shot back. We're both idiots. Functional idiots, he allowed. The core pulsed once, faintly, like a creature turning over in its sleep. Seraya glanced at it, then at us. You keep your promise, she said. You don't break it until I tell you how to do it, without killing what shouldn't be killed. My family bound more than power into that thing. Old vows rot slowly. I crossed my arms. How long? Several weeks, she said. I'll call for you when I'm ready. The echo mark hummed with Roen's displeasure before his face showed it. You're asking us to trust you. I'm asking you to wait, she corrected. Trust optional. The sun inched higher. The city below woke up, cars like beetles on wet pavement, ferries dragging silver wakes across the river. The whole world felt indecently normal for what we'd just done to it. I turned back toward the core. It hovered in its cocoon of glassy light, no longer hungry, no longer angry. Just a heart beating in someone else's chest for a little longer. Seraya rested a hand on the hilt of the dagger she hadn't drawn all night. Go home, she said. Sleep, yell at each other, whatever you people do. I'll send word when it's time to finish this properly. The echo mark pulsed again between me and Roen, wariness from him, agreement from me, something untranslatable in the middle. The sun finally touched the edge of the river, turning the water into hammered copper. I realized my hands weren't shaking anymore. For the first time since this started, the day felt like it might actually belong to us. The evening sunlight spilled through the wide windows of my new office, catching on the edges of glass and warm wood like it had been hired to make everything look twice as successful. It worked. The space wasn't big. 3 desks, 1 potted plant I hadn't killed yet, a scatter of half-full mugs, but it was mine. The logo for my design agency glowed faintly on the wall. The paint still smelling new. A client stood by the conference table, flipping through mock-ups on his tablet. "This," he said, tapping one with a grin that made me want to frame it, "is exactly what we needed." Once upon a time, I would have said thank you, and shrunk from the way the praise hit like sunlight on bare skin. Now I smiled, shook his hand and said, "We'll have the final files to you by Friday. If you want to add another campaign, we can talk retainers." Look at me. Asking. Taking up space. The echo mark along my ribs warmed faintly, not words, just a little pulse of approval from a certain demon miles away. Like he'd overheard my spine growing in. The client left happy, and the office emptied into quiet humming with things unplugged for the night. Through the window, the river flexed and shimmered under a sky turning honey gold. Somewhere in the city, Seraya was unwinding centuries of old vows, thread by cursed thread. Every few days, a faint vibration would travel through the echo mark, her way of saying another knot had come loose, another ancestor's shadow sent packing. The Nabath was under her protection now, not anyone's leash. It had stopped humming at me in my sleep. I locked up the office, slung my bag over my shoulder, and walked 2 blocks to the cafe with the river view. Warm light pooled on the pavement outside. Inside smelled like espresso and cardamom. And there he was. Roen sat at a corner table, posture too straight for someone pretending to be casual. No black coat, no midnight armor, just a button-down rolled at the sleeves, and an expression that kept trying for neutral and missing by an inch. He stood when he saw me. "Second date," he said. Tone caught somewhere between invitation and question. This time, his mouth quirked. "No body swapping?" I dropped into the chair opposite him. "Bold promise," I said. "What if you get nostalgic? Then I'll buy you coffee, instead of stealing your pulse." The echo mark warmed again, faint as breath on glass. His discomfort felt like static. My amusement answered it before either of us spoke. We ordered. We sat. The river outside held the sunset like it had been bribed. "You're different," he said finally. "New business cards," I said. "Whole personality upgrade." He gave me a look. The echo mark hummed, translating what he didn't say. "You take up more space now." "Good." I sipped my coffee. "You look less like a winter storm, more like late autumn." "Progress?" "Don't push it," he said, but his voice had lost its edges. We talked about small things, clients, the plant in my office surviving against all odds, Seraya's quiet war with history. Every so often, the mark between us pulsed when our amusement or irritation lined up, like the world was underlining our sentences in faint gold. At one point I laughed at something, him trying to describe demon bureaucracy as temperamental, plumbing, and the mark warmed so gently I forgot for a second it was magic and not just something people felt when they both knew where the joke landed. The cups emptied. The light thinned to copper. Roen leaned back, studying me like someone checking a map before offering a road. "Second date," he said again, slower this time. "On purpose. No contracts, no dawn deadlines, just, if you want to." I set my cup down carefully. "I do. But if you're late," I added, "I will summon your echo and embarrass you in 3 dimensions." His mouth tilted. "Only 3? Don't tempt me." The mark hummed warm agreement, like it appreciated threats delivered with this much cheer. Outside, the first streetlights blinked on. The river carried away the last shards of sun. Roen stood, not dramatic about it, just there, hand out, waiting. I looked at it. At him. At the faint glow where the echo mark pulsed like a second heartbeat between us. Then, I put my hand in his. It fit. Warm, steady, like something we'd both chosen instead of stumbled into. "Come on," he said, quiet enough that only the mark heard the shape of relief under it. We left the cafe for the warm evening and the bridge beyond, and the world, for once, didn't demand anything but tomorrow.